Hey everyone, welcome to Soul Cafe. Nice to have you back, Erin.
Nice to be back. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
You're looking good. You feeling good?
I'm feeling good. Yeah,
Good. We missed you last week.
I know. I mean, it was actually kind of nice watching it from the sidelines. I'm not going to lie. It's like, the midweek rush to get everything done. So it was a little unusual not to have that pressure on, but I'm glad I got my sleep. So
I
thank
knew you were watching. I said you were, and I knew you were because, you couldn't resist. But yeah, Jen did a pretty nice job, don't you
you. Did a
think?
great job. Thank
Yeah.
you, Jen. She did a great job. Yes.
Yeah,
It's
she really
awesome.
did. And she's with us again tonight, but
It is.
as a guest.
As a guest.
We
Yeah.
offered her to stay in here with us at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. She was
did.
like, you can have me in here or not, but we'll give her a little shout out. She had a birthday this week.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Happy birthday. Mm-hmm.
How many is this?
Well, I'm not good. I'm not at liberty
I
to
can
say
look it
that,
up. I
Jim.
can look it up.
Well, if I were you and I were a betting man, I'd keep your mouth shut, son. But you do you.
Young and healthy. She's doing well. I think that's
Young and
good.
vibrant and healthy. She's
Yeah.
only 4 months older than me. So there you go.
That does,
Got me about 4
I don't
months.
even know what that means.
I'm coming on her heels fast. Well, we're still not as old as you, Jim, so it's all good.
That's true. You never will be. That's
True.
Yeah.
True.
All right. Well, so it's Ash Wednesday.
It is Ash Wednesday.
Normally we'd be at church and we'd be doing the ashes on the forehead thing for Wednesday
know.
night. So,
I was thinking about the fact that we did this last year in person. It had to be like our last Soul Cafe in person. We ended up doing
I think it might have been second to last. So
second to last, maybe. Okay.
yeah, so we've been sort of recounting the dates. It was 2 weeks ago right now that I spoke to the whole church family about it, and 3 weeks ago that I spoke to the staff about this coming pandemic, and then I think that on the 17th of March, our staff gathered sort of in a scattered way, and that was our last time.
That was our last one, right, on stage with Jemmy from. That was our last one in person.
Well, it was earlier than that for Soul Cafe. This is like our staff meeting. So the 15th of March was our last in-person. Everybody was there. Everything was wide open.
Yeah.
Worship service. And that's nuts because, at the time I said, you guys be ready for 4 to 6 months or something. And people thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
And now it turns out I was just conservative.
A year later. Yeah.
It's insane. It is insane.
Well, what are you giving up for Lent? What are you going to do? It starts the 40
Soul
days,
Cafe.
right?
I'm going to give it up for Lent.
All right, cool. We got 40 days off. I love it. We'll be back in April, guys.
So here's what I've made a decision, and it's been hard, but this is what I'm going to give up: restaurants, movie theaters.
That's too bad for you. I haven't given those up.
Don't you feel like it's been a year of Lent, a year of forced Lent? I mean, I guess
depends on what your tolerance for risk is, I guess. But
had we used it that way, well, no, you haven't. You've done
I've
something.
gone to restaurants and
You haven't done it all, so it hasn't been the same.
Yeah.
And no, we've done some stuff, but it's not. We've given up a lot for sure. We could have just called it a year of Lent and made it a spiritual thing, and it, would have been like we could have a monastic lifestyle. That would have been good.
Yeah, instead, a lot of people went the other way, but it's okay. It's your choices, guys. It's your choices. So I don't know. I took it seriously. I still meditated on Ash Wednesday today. I still thought about seriously, actually, what should we be thinking about giving up? So I don't know. I hope everyone else still was able to do that, even if we're missing the sort of natural milestones in the ritualistic way, getting ashes and things like that. So
Yeah, but you said coming in tonight you were giving up nothing.
no, I said I was giving up procrastination.
Oh, procrastination, right?
That's like a legit thing. That's a sacrificial thing for me. Trust me, that's gonna be hard.
And I might do that too, but I'm going to wait a while. And
Wait a while, yeah, till tomorrow.
yeah, I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah,
maybe.
why not? Put it off. It's okay.
I never tell people what I'm giving up. Honestly, I always do practice some sort of Lenten sacrifice, but I don't usually talk about it. I just think, the New Testament says don't hold it out there. I think it's a personal thing.
Yep.
But we're on the way to Easter now, and without the big celebration that usually is Mardi Gras and Fat Tuesday and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, whatever.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Good enough. And we're getting snow for you on Thursday. There you go.
I love snow, but it's not going to be enough. It's
7 inches.
It's going to be small. No, what did you say it's going to be?
Supposedly 7 inches on Thursday.
No way. There's no way.
I mean, I don't know if I believe it, but that's
No,
what it said.
It's not going to happen. Way too much sleet, freezing rain. I would say 4 is. I'm sort of saying 4, and I think that might be overdoing it. I think we could have 2 or 3. We'll see.
We'll see.
But it's not going to be it's not going to be 7 or 8. That we need a big one though,
No.
because that purges things.
No.
It just
You're the only one that wants that, buddy. You're
I'm not the only one. There are others. Trust me. My buds
a
want
whole
it.
tribe of you.
A good foot would be awesome, but
Yeah.
it's not going to happen.
No, I don't think I think we're past. I think
Yeah, we're getting late for this for where we are. So, all right. Well, let's bring in Aaron
Aaron,
Torgerson, Atorg or whatever.
Torg, Aaron, Aaron.
Aaron.
There he is.
He's in
Aaron.
the woods, but he's not in the
In the
woods. I think
woods.
he's at home, aren't you? Aren't you at home?
I am at home. Yeah, this is my awesome.
Yeah,
Zoom
because you keep
background.
disappearing into the woods.
I always love your fake background because then we can't see your hand. It's like,
It's
Yes.
like magical guitar playing itself.
That's right.
What do you got for us tonight, man?
I got some sad songs for you.
I don't even have to joke about it. You're making it up yourself.
I got sad songs. I don't know. I've been in the mood for country. I've been in a sad song mood. I can't manage to like really get into the blues vibe. I've tried. I played through a bunch of songs, but for some reason the feel of it is just not sticking with me. I don't know
Breaks you
why.
down.
No, not you. You did one last week. It worked.
I did, yeah, and I've known that one for years and years, going way back. But I don't know that many blues songs. I've tried a few. I tried to learn Deep River Blues, which is a Doc Watson song,
Mhm.
and I was starting to get that one. It's almost like a parody of a blues song in a way, though, because it's got some silly lines in there. But maybe one day I'll pull that one out. Don't have it quite yet, though. So, but I'm just gonna play some sad songs.
All right, man. Well, take
All right.
it away. You playing one or two?
I have two, but if you only have time
No. We'll let you just roll right from 1 to 2, and we'll
got
watch you and enjoy. We'll just love it.
Grab a Kleenex and get ready for our cry.
Right.
Watch
Get the Kleenex out.
I'm
All
not in
right.
a sad mood, but I'll try. I'll do my best.
This is Here in the Real World by Alan Jackson. Cowboys don't cry, heroes don't die, good always wins again and again. And love is a sweet dream that'll always come true. Oh, if life were like a movie, I'd never be blue. But here in the real world, it's not that easy at all. 'Cause when hearts get broken, it's real tears that fall. And darling, it's sad but true. But the one thing I've learned from you is how the boy don't always get the girl here in the real world. I gave you my love, but that wasn't enough to hold your heart when times got tough. Tonight on that silver screen, it'll end like it should. Two lovers will make it through like I hoped we would. Here in the real world, it's not that easy at all. 'Cause when hearts get broken, it's real tears that fall. Darling, it's sad but true. But the one thing I've learned from you is how the boy don't always get the girl here in the real world. No, the boy don't always get the girl here in the real world. That was Alan Jackson, Here in the Real World.
Nice job, man. It's a good song. It's a good one. I don't think
I
it's
love
even
that.
that sad. Do you think it's a sad song?
It is a sad song,
I don't know. I don't
but
think
it
so.
gets sadder than that, my friend. I planned these.
All right, I'm gone.
These
Gonna put
are
you back on Spotlight. I can't handle if it gets sadder.
increasing order of increasing sadness. I thought about alphabetical order, but I figured this was.
Your video went off. Can you put it back on?
It sure did. Oh no. It says you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
I didn't do that. Let's see what I can do here. Okay, let's see. Ask to start video.
Okay, here we go. Start my video. Hey,
All right,
there we go.
There you go. Yeah, we got to see you, man. We can't just hear you.
Okay. Imagination just doesn't do it. All right. This one is called. All right. This is a little, risque for a soul cafe, but I've done it before, so I think it's all right. This is Whiskey and You by Chris Stapleton. There's a bottle on the dresser by your ring, and it's empty. So right now I can't feel a thing. I'll be hurting when I wake up on the floor, but I'll be over it by noon. That's the difference between whiskey and you. Come tomorrow, I can walk in any store. It ain't a problem, 'cause right now they'll sell me more. But your forgiveness, well, that's something I can't buy. There ain't a thing that I can do. That's the difference between whiskey and you. One's the devil, one keeps driving me insane. At times I wonder if they ain't both the same. One's a liar that helps to hide me from my pain. One's a long gone bit of truth. That's the difference between whiskey and you. I've got a problem, but it ain't like what you think. I drink 'cause I'm lonesome, and I'm lonesome 'cause I drink. But if I don't break down, bring it on myself, it'll hit out of the blue. That's the difference between whiskey and you. One's the devil, one keeps driving me insane. At times I wonder if they ain't both the same. One's a lie hide me from my pain. One's a long gone bit of truth. That's the difference between whiskey and you. Oh, that's the difference between whiskey and you.
One of my favorites.
Nice, man. I like that one too, and you've done it before. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know though. It is that one is kind of sad. I feel lonely and sad.
Earl was definitely jamming out to that one.
When I'm done, you feel a little more lonesome and a little more somber. I guess my job is done.
Well, I mean, like we've been saying, I think sometimes sad music makes you feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I sure do like singing it. I don't know why. You know me.
Because it makes you happier.
I guess so, yeah.
I guess so. You do a good job with it, man. We love you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Have a good night.
All right, Aaron, introduce our topic for tonight.
All right. So obviously I wasn't able to be here last week, but thank you very much again to the wonderful Miss Jen Landers, who ran the topic for the evening, which was part one of a two-part discussion, which is talking about getting our kids back in school full time. So last week we obviously brought to you two physicians in different areas, but that were both part of campaigns to advocate for getting our kids back in school. And this week we wanted to take a little bit more of a parental perspective of it. So we've got Jen Landers back again this week. We've got Allison Babb, who's also a member of Columbia that everyone knows. She is part of the Arlington County parents group that's looking to get people back in. We've got Jared Anderson, who is here, it's Anderson, yes. I'm all of a sudden worried that I'm going to mess up his name. That is a friend of ours in Falls Church with his little guy, who's working on the advisory committee for the Falls Church Parents Group, as well as Courtney Mooney, who's going to be joining us.
Courtney Chambers?
It's actually Courtney Mooney. Courtney Chambers, I believe, is her maiden name. I mixed it up.
Okay, gotcha.
Courtney Mooney. So she'll be coming in as well. And hi, Courtney. She is also, so you've got 4 Falls Church parents here. 3 of which who are on, the actual committees and organization that's working to get our kids back into school. And then Allison representing Arlington County, which of course is just next door and facing a lot of the same challenges that we are. And so we wanted to try to have a conversation this evening talking about it from the parents' perspective and the children's perspective, because they're probably the one voice we don't hear from hardly at all. And while we shouldn't be so bold as to speak directly on behalf of our children, I think all of us feel comfortable enough knowing what our children have gone through that we can speak to the experiences of them. What we did want to do is start off the conversation, or what I wanted to do, because I have the mic and I can offer that I'd like to start off with a specific topic, that I missed you all last week. And the reason I missed you all last week was because I had COVID. And I spoke with Jennifer and Allison before the show to talk about whether they would also feel comfortable acknowledging that they have had COVID before and talking about their experience. And because this entire thing can't avoid the topic of COVID, I just felt like one voice that I haven't felt I've heard a lot from is the people that are getting COVID and living with it and being able to move on, which does not in any way, shape, or form diminish the challenges that we've had with the disease. But that we need to start hearing more stories about how we need to be able to live with it, what our experiences have been with it, and so forth. So I can kick off that conversation by saying that I did contract COVID last week. I know where I got it from. I know that it was due to exposed 15 minutes or longer with no masks in an inside environment. And as you can see, I'm here. My symptoms were not horrible. I was sleepy. I was congested. I did qualify for the monoclonal antibody treatment because of my 1-beaner status, which certainly, by all indications, helped me get over it pretty quickly. But my daughter, Maddie, also got it. Cyril and Jude were both negative and continue to be negative and symptom-free. So our family has experienced it. And I don't mind trying to make sure that I'm being someone that explains also what it looks like when it's this, so that we can start normalizing the conversation and making it okay, and destigmatizing talking about it, destigmatizing having to acknowledge that you've had it, that you've been exposed, things like that. So Jen, Allison, I'll let you all sort of speak to your experience there, but I just felt like that was an appropriate place to start, since that is the crux of what we're all talking about.
Yeah.
Jen, do you want to go since you were
Sure.
way back?
You were
Wait.
first.
Yeah. So what's that, Erin?
You were a groundbreaker.
I don't know if that's good or, yeah, I started having symptoms on Thursday, March 12th. So I don't know where I picked it up. It started off as a cold, and over a period of 7 days, I developed a fever, and I lost my sense of taste and smell, which it wasn't even a symptom back then. So I had that before it was even cool. But I had, throughout that process, obviously everything was shut down. So I had 2 telemed appointments with my doctor, and both times she's like, every symptom, until I developed the fever, every symptom didn't match up what they were looking for at the time. So, and even when I had the fever, because nothing else, they couldn't pair that with another symptom, she was still saying, well, I don't think it's COVID. You definitely have a virus of some sort, but I don't think it's COVID. She's like, but stay home, and which I did. And but I have a heart condition that I deal with every day, but I probably had it worse. Paul had it as well. And the only symptom he had was loss of taste and smell. But I was, the exhaustion definitely hit me, and I felt like I had a really bad cold. So it definitely took me the full 2 weeks to recover. And but I was home and treated it with Tylenol. And aside from some elevated blood pressure afterwards, I fully recovered. So.
Thank you for sharing. How about you, Allison?
So my entire family has had it. Kids, grown-ups, everybody. The kids completely asymptomatic. The only reason we know they had it is we got antibody tested for some recent travel, and they popped positive. So we can check that box. But yeah, same here. I think for me, I would characterize it as less severe than the flu. That usually puts me in bed, and this I continue to work through. I did meetings, all that stuff with it, but the main thing for me was definitely fatigue and the loss of taste and smell. That's actually why I got tested. We don't know where we picked it up, but we believe in Texas. But so loss of taste and smell was that was the indicator. That's why I went and got tested. Josh lost his the next day. And then it was just kind of, it took a while to like maybe a week to kind of feel like totally normal. Lots of vitamin D and C and some Advil here and there, but pretty good. But again, the kids were asymptomatic. They did online school throughout. So we made it work, but.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't know. This isn't meant to be a platform where I'm just saying, gosh, it's not that bad. I understand that it's bad. For quite a lot of people, but I do think that we need to begin destigmatizing and normalizing the conversation.
Yeah, that was a conversation we had quite a bit with some friends, was kind of, it's become a bad thing to get a respiratory virus, very infectious respiratory virus. Like it's some sort of stain on your character, and that needs to go away.
Yeah.
But I think there also can be some risk stratification, right? Like we know contextually the risk of an 80-year-old is 1 in 10. The risk of a child is 1 in 1 million. Right. So we do have to kind of, as a society, start evaluating that.
Yeah. So I appreciate both of you being willing to be open and honest and candid about it. I do know in my specific situation that the biggest PSA I can give you is, let's not be afraid if we believe we've been exposed. The responsible thing is tell people you've been around for more than 15 minutes en masse in a closed environment. That's the right thing to do. Just like it's always been the right thing to do to keep your kid home from school if they've got a fever. I get it that we've all maybe done it once in a while, but like it's never been the good thing to do, not even before COVID. So let's all just acknowledge the things that we should do. And, most of us or some of us grew up in the 80s when, there was another big crisis around a virus where there was shame and stigmatization around it. And we've proven time and again, that does not help anything. So I do think that it is worthy of people talking openly about it and showing pictures of, yeah, it's not fun, but it is not the worst thing. And I'll admit, I have asthma. I just, donated a kidney 6 weeks ago. For a hot second, I sat in my bed and was like, crap, I've got this. And then I just had to go, the doctors just deemed me healthy enough to give up an organ. I work out on a regular basis. I eat normal food. If this takes a wrong turn, it will be a scientific anomaly in the percentages. And I've got to calm myself down because stressing about it will only decrease my body's defense mechanism to fight it. So it did. I'm not going to deny that it wasn't scary for a hot second, but that helped me a lot to try to normalize what's really going on here. What are my real odds here? And how can I de-stress myself so that I can get the rest that I need and then recover and move on? And I do think that we heard that in the discussion last week with Emily, where she was talking about how I acknowledged the fear, but the way I got through it was going to work every day. And I do think that's something that is important that we all share, since we're willing to be here and open and candid about it with everyone, because it does not mean we diminish fear. It does not mean that we are downplaying the people who've lost their lives over this, but these conversations can happen in tension, and we need to get comfortable with that tension in the conversation. So that's what I'll say, unless anyone has questions for us on the panel or any other stories about it. Otherwise, we can move on to specifically talking around schools and kids and all the fun stuff.
I will say, I think for me, and this is something I've been a Bible study, and we've been talking about this quite a bit, is, we're reading through the Old Testament and reading about plagues and famine and war and all of these things that were happening. None of this is new, right? We have 1 out of 1 humans will die. We have viruses. We have horrible things happen all the time. As Christians, we are called to not fear and to cast our anxieties on him. And I think COVID doesn't change any of that. So I think it's important to keep that in mind too, as we, what should be different about us, what should be different about Christians as we are evaluating our lives and our decision-making and things like that when talking about a respiratory illness.
Thank you for that. Okay, well, so we've got a variety of different people. The other thing that I want to acknowledge is that this is not a homogenized experience. We are all different parents. We have kids at all different ages and all different belief systems that are filing into what's making us want to advocate for our children. So I don't want to diminish the fact that it's all the same reason. So I figure I'm just going to go by my tiles here. I'm going to start with you, Courtney, because you're down there, and I'm going to go around. But Courtney, maybe if you could introduce yourself and then maybe give us a sentence or two on what drove you to this point of advocacy and where are you coming from as far as, trying to make sure that we get our kids back into school.
Aaron, just a sentence. You do not know me well.
All right,
no, I'm kidding. So my name is Courtney Mooney or Courtney Chambers. I go by either. It's fine. I have a 3rd grader at Falls Church City Public Schools. I have an only child. And I think what really spurred me to get involved is after kind of sitting back and waiting for almost a year for us to sort of move to a point where I thought we were making forward progress. We are getting our kids back to where they need to be. And over that course of that year, watching my child sit by himself in a basement all day long. We both work outside the home. We're basically paying a proctor, which thank God that we are in the position financially to be able to do that. Because quite frankly, I had other plans lined up that fell through literally 2 days before school was supposed to start. So we were scrambling. I've watched him while he's done okay academically. I've watched him struggle more and more with the isolation and the being by himself, and hearing him talk about how he's never spoken to most of his classmates and he's never seen most of his classmates, and they don't ever really interact because, the screen is locked, the chat is locked. It's the teacher on the screen from 9 to 4. And it's not healthy, and it's isolating. And the last time the hybrid false start happened, I just sort of lost any faith in our ability for administrators to by themselves try to carry this heavy lift. And I felt like we are kind of long past due for parents and teachers and administrators to really start collaborating together and having open, honest discussions about A, what's really going on, B, what's really needed, C, how can we help fill those gaps for each other, and that someone needed to start that conversation. And it clearly was going to have to be, I think, from the parents, because I think if anything, not only has this pandemic isolated our children, but we're all very isolated and in silos and not communicating with each other and not having that interaction that garners conversation and collaboration. And so we have to be intentional about those things. And so, I just kind of felt like we must start being intentional and we must start pushing this ball forward, or else we're never going to get where we need to go.
It's awesome. How about you, Jared? You're next on my screen here. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your motivation.
So I'm Jared. I'm a statistician. I have a kindergartner. And I started following the literature on COVID way back in April, particularly in relation to pediatric cases. And when the Falls Church City Public Schools decided to announce a hybrid model, I thought I would suggest, what I thought was a better hybrid model because it focused more on pediatric cases and followed the science on the fact that younger kids get it less and spread it less. But I was willing to work with them. I got a lot of parents to sign on to a letter saying that, here's how we can open up safely. And then, especially at the end of kind of middle of July, when the administration said, "Oh, we're going to go fully virtual to start the year," I knew that was a mistake. And because at that point I'm not as risk averse, I think, as a school administrator. So I understand why, they might not want to go fully in person, but I think it was clear that it was a mistake from a scientific perspective. Then we had the information then, and all we've had since then is more information on how schools can open safely. Nothing's a perfectly safe environment, but we have to weigh the risk and the benefits. And I am in a very good position in that I send my son 3 days a week to daycare, and he's online 2 days a week. I've seen other kids who have not had that opportunity, and my heart breaks for them. And we've had to do a couple of isolations because of 2 exposures at his daycare. And I can't imagine having a child in front of a computer for 2 straight weeks, essentially. And I just think that what needs to get out there is that, yes, it is scary, but we have to kind of weigh the risk and put it in relation to what else is dangerous. And from all the data, from pretty much every single source, we can open schools safely. And I think that message needs to get out there, because I don't think that is actually what is coming across.
Sure. I appreciate that. Allison, you're next on my screen.
Where to begin?
Now everyone's kept it short, so we still got plenty of time to talk, people. We got half an hour left, so you go.
We too, Josh is involved in, has been involved in COVID since before COVID was in the US, and looking at the data even as early as April that we could see coming out of Europe and Asia, we felt very secure in our family's true risk. And then that data just kept being encouraging throughout the rest of the spring and into the summer with regards to in-person school. We could look at a lot of other countries and see how safe it was. So I joined the Arlington Parents for Education that a dad in Arlington had made to advocate for 5-day-a-week school, because I felt that hybrid was kind of the worst of all options. It's horrible for teachers with kids. What are they supposed to do when they're in the building and their kids have nowhere to go? It's not great for working families, and it really is. For people with a wealth of options, it's okay, right? You make a pod, you find a daycare, you shuffle your kid around to different homes. You can kind of make it work. But people without that wealth of options, virtual and hybrid is not a great option, and it really increases risk for everybody if you're talking about moving cohorts around, right? Versus having kids in a classroom who we know transmit less compared to adults, and it's a stable cohort, right? So it's a teacher in the room with the same group of people day in, day out, versus the kid is over here at house A here and house B on Thursday and in school on Friday, and whatever. So I joined APE to advocate for full 5 days, which now feels like I was very naive. In the summer, I had lots of meetings with the superintendent and the chief of staff. And as I realized, as these meetings were happening, that no real planning was happening. We bumped back the start of school by a week. We didn't get any more plans. I saw the writing on the wall, and we enrolled in private. I'll never forget, I hung up on a Zoom call and I turned around, that's where Josh sits all day. And I said, Google private schools. So that's what we did. We found 2 spots in a private school that was as reasonable as we could find for private school. And we've been blessed to have them in there 5 days a week since August. The entire school has had 3 cases total, one of which was my kid. No spread at school. All of 3 kids got it from their parents, and they did not spread it to their teacher. They did not spread it to their fellow students. So I think, our money is where our mouth is. I'm not advocating for this and then not taking on the risk. I think, to Jared's point, I feel like we need to evaluate the harms and the risks, and we need to do less harm. And I think we know without a doubt that schools are safer. Our kids are safer at school. And I think, honestly, it should be a public health measure at this point to move hundreds of thousands, if not millions of kids into a school building where they are focused on risk mitigation all day long. Versus, we know that kids are getting this if they get it at play dates. The CDC did a study. It was like play dates, weddings, and something else is where kids are picking this up. It's not at school.
Right.
And in addition to the mental health benefits and the academic benefits of being in school. So that's why I have been a part of this effort and pretty much do this as a full-time job in addition to my normal job at this point.
We are proud of you.
Thank you.
Are you running for school board, or you were written in and you're still considering that for next year? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not running this year, I don't think, but people did write my name in, which was an honor. But if I run, I think it would be next year.
Well, we are proud of you. And Jen, to you, I know you were on last week, so you might have touched on this just a bit, but maybe if you could give us your perspective on why this has become a really important issue to the point of advocacy.
Yeah, for us, as so many families experienced back in the spring, that was just when everything shut down and everything went virtual. That was probably one of the hardest periods of time for our family. So our youngest son had just received his IEP for his dyslexia, and it was like 3 weeks before the school shut down. So that was a huge, not knowing how they were going to be able to deliver his services in an online environment was very anxiety. It was very stressful. So it was that, and then it was kind of the up and down of the summer. So as Jared said, we are in the same district, and as Jared said, that we found out that we would be starting the year 100% virtual. But that was about 3 weeks after they had told us that we were going to go back by the end of September 100% in person. That we were able, in the elementary schools, we have an upper and a lower elementary school in our district, and that based on the CDC and health department regulations, that we would be able to get every kid back in school in person. And then 3 weeks after that, they pulled that and said that we were going to be 100% virtual. And then they said there was a plan to go into hybrid. So it was and then from there, it was a roller coaster. So I think emotionally, not only for Paul and I, but also for our boys, when they would hear that, a date was approaching that would get them back into the classroom in some capacity, and that being pulled back, it was heartbreaking. And watching kind of the progression of how difficult this was for my kids. So one of them it was a Saturday, I think it was 3 weeks ago. And I was sitting on the couch with one of my sons, and he just burst into tears. And it was heartbreaking. I said, son, what is wrong? And he said, I miss my friend. And, as a parent, that is just, it's difficult. And, I think it was Courtney that said, I think academically, my children are ultimately going to be okay once they are able to catch up from this year. But the emotional toll that it's taken on them and on the kids in our community has just been heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So, that's why.
Well, I'm proud of you. I know that it took a lot. We talked a lot about it, and I know that it was an awesome thing to finally find a way in which to advocate. So I have 2 kids in the Falls Church City School District. My daughter is in 5th grade. My son is in 7th. So I think I have the oldest kid ranking here, and Jim and I even had a session at the end of last year talking about churches and things. And I continue. I will attest to the damage that it is doing to middle school boys, specifically from my experience. I can't count on a girl, but my son is at an age of development that is extraordinarily difficult and to be that isolated. Also being boys, video games and things like that become the one social avenue that you don't want to take away, because at least they're talking to people, but at the same time can be really dangerous to spend that type of time. And I'm a little bit of an unusual Falls Church City resident in the sense that I don't have a lot of the resources a lot of people in the city do actually have. And so we did have to make a very difficult family decision to reduce our incomes. And so Cyril stepped back from his full-time position to full-time be at home, because our kids were getting so many notes about not being able to be participating in school, falling out, not doing well. And we realized that the emotional and intellectual toll it was taking on them required that we give up an income to satisfy that demand, to make sure they were taken care of. So for us, it was a really personal decision. Admittedly, we are moving out of the area. We are moving to a place that is in school, and we are excited about that. But it's come at a cost of leaving our hometown. And certainly there were a couple of other decisions that were in the mix there. But for sure, we took our children to Georgia in July. It was the first time they really got the opportunity to see other kids in person, and to see my son come alive, after 5 months of being in his room, talking and seeing no one. I would pay money to see that face again. So we did. We bought a house in Georgia, and we're going down to where he's able to play. But we don't benefit from a street of pod. We don't benefit from being able to have hired help in and things like that. And so for us, it was a real economical choice, as well as seeing a real solid deterioration in mental health and in school performance greatly for both our kids. So that is why I'm here, still even having the conversation, even though I am moving somewhere where my kids will luckily, hopefully, be going back to school in person in a month. So that hopefully helps everyone just have a rounded perspective of all of us coming in. Jim, I know you don't have school-age children, but your daughter is a school teacher.
My daughter's a teacher. And frankly, I think we're all going to be going back to school in a month. So the CDC, as probably many of you saw today, released a statement that not all teachers needed to be vaccinated to go back. And I think we're past the point of, I think you guys are about to succeed in getting, well, you're part of the equation. I think kids are going to be back really soon. But it has been hard. I've watched the toll on families. We, as Jen knows, we managed to open a center for children to come and study virtually and have kids there. We reopened our CDC. We thought the statistics were there for that. I do think it's a multifaceted, difficult decision, because I hear from a lot of parents, and there's the group like you, and there are also parents who don't want their kids to go back. It's been really intriguing to me. And then, I think there are a lot of teachers. My daughter was ready to go back 3 times. She thought she was going back, and she was certainly ready to do it. She's concerned about some of her kids. And then a few other teachers, maybe some in an older population, but that aren't. So it's been a complex moment. And, I kind of think we'll look back historically and see that there's something more being captured here, but I don't know, we're ready to figure out what it is, some cultural tension of some sort. So, I think everybody's going to go back, Erin. Frankly, I think a month from now, everybody will be back.
I don't think they'll be back full time. And I think most of us on this call are advocating for full time. So I do think it is, I don't think anyone's going to shake a stick at being able to be back somewhat hybrid. Although I agree with Allison. Hybrid's not any easier. I really, I'm not fortunate because I had to give up an income to have this situation, but I'm fortunate because now I have a situation where there is a parent who can be home to have to deal with the vacillation of the schedule. So I don't want to dismiss hybrid as being fine, but if I'm honest, that does nothing to impress me. I want full time.
I mean,
feel like
better than nothing, right? I mean,
better than
that's
nothing. I'll argue for better than nothing.
Well, it's a step back. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, I think next fall everybody will be back full time. No matter what the situation is, I think either we'll live with this and there'll be some sort of mutations that can't be handled, or we'll be vaccinated or whatever. But yeah, and I mean, I think what we've seen is that one of the things we've learned is, I think we wondered if the virtual thing would have some promise. It doesn't work, and I think we've seen that, in church too. It's okay for adults. I said this last week, but early on we thought, well, the people most well suited to this will be our students who are virtual all the time anyway. It doesn't work for them. So I think we have learned that children and teenagers, there's an age at which you just have to have social interaction. And we should have prioritized that early on as a culture. I think many of us felt that way, and we didn't. And, it's not been a good experiment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jared, I know that you do a lot with statistics, and certainly you expressed that you had a lot of information around what maybe could create a safe environment and those types of things. Did you also see statistics around what this is doing to children? And I know, Allison, maybe you can answer this as well, because you were mentioning some stats, but I do think it's important. I think, Jared, you were the one who said to be able to look at the whole picture. So all of the harm that's being done, or all of the things we should fear, not just this one area of thing that we need to solve. Do you have any insights to share with us around what the real implications are for children from a mental or intellectual perspective?
So I haven't followed that literature as much. I mean, I probably know as much as everyone on this call about, the deterioration of mental health, deterioration of physical health, the learning loss for the country as a whole. Like, everybody saw it in the spring where it just kind of tanked. And I highly doubt that it's, gonna, for the majority of the people who are being affected by this, I highly doubt that learning loss is going to be overcome very quickly. It is, I think, for long-term impacts, in terms of, I got my PhD in economics, and so I've taken a look at economics of education and long-term impacts on losses of education. Like, childhood really does have a huge impact on people's development later in life, their job prospects, how they develop in a physical and emotional way. And so I really do, I'm hopeful, but I think there is cause for concern about long-term impacts.
Yeah, it's not just 1 year for a kid when it's a huge percentage.
Even with
Right.
hybrid, I don't, and I think there's enough data to suggest that going back full time is safe for kids, but and has, there's no correlation with percentage of students in person and staff infection rates.
Right. And that was even pre-vaccine, right? So now we've prioritized in Virginia teachers in 1B. A lot of school districts got their own tranche. They didn't have to fight with the rest of 1B. Private schools and daycare teachers had to fight. I'm sure Columbia staff for CDC probably too.
They all got vaccinated. Yeah.
That's great. So they're not, APS got its own tranche of the vaccine. Meanwhile, private school teachers had to fight with the rest of 1B. So that data was strong. There's that COVID-19 dashboard there where you can look and see the COVID rates of staff, and hybrid and full in-person staff, like you mentioned, negligible difference in COVID rates for them. Fully remote staff have higher COVID rates, which is why I mentioned it's almost a public health measure. In addition to all the benefits, in addition to all the harms of keeping them out, of bringing them in, when you move people into a place of risk mitigation, and that's protocols, and they're thinking about it all day. But to your point, Aaron, as far as data, I mean, we know that proportionally we have a 24% increase in mental health related ER visits for children 5 to 11, a 31% increase in older kids compared to last year proportionally. We know child abuse reports have fallen by an astronomical number because these kids are not in front of their mandatory reporters. And I'm pretty sure in the middle of a pandemic, child abuse has not gone down. So that's especially heartbreaking, not even to mention the learning loss. We know something like 156% of middle schoolers have higher failing grades across the US. This is not even regionally, this is US. And 77% of high schoolers have more failing grades. And this is remote only school. So, and, you know, we know in last week that we had 39% of schools were fully in person. Something like 32% were hybrid, and then the rest are fully remote. So we have 39% of schools in America fully in person. And we're not seeing COVID rates in those communities any higher than places where schools are fully remote. So the benefit of staying remote, there is none. There's
Right.
only harm.
Allison, to your point, in fact, Florida released a study today that I saw that compared, you know, based on population size, it looked at Florida compared to Illinois, Ohio, California, which are other large, heavily populated states. They have 100% open schools in Florida, and their pediatric cases for COVID are actually lower than all of those other states, and they have been fully in school all year. So again, I think that there's a lot of information around why being in school makes sense, not just for students, but for teachers. You know, on a personal note, I work in diagnostic testing, so I was actually quite involved in the DC response and rollout of COVID testing. So I was in the trenches from day one, helping medical facilities figure out how they were going to test patients, how that was going to work, what that looked like. And, you know, and I think I can kind of understand where teachers are a little fearful. And you guys touched on this a little bit last week in your last discussion with the physicians, where it's scary when you're walking into an unknown, right? And you don't quite know what to expect. That's scary. And I think that we have to have empathy around that. And we have to understand that there is, you know, the teachers are people with families and their own things too, and administrators. But I think on a personal note, you know, when you do something and then you realize that the things that we know work truly do work. You know, medical facilities, people are going in and out and having office visits and being seen by, you know, hospitals and going into large medical buildings by the hundreds every day. They're not considered mass spreaders or, you know, potential problem spots because they have universal safety protocols that are followed. They are essentially safety bubbles where people are coming in from the community and there is no transmission that is happening within these facilities because they're safety protocols. Schools can be quite similar, and we know that they're quite similar by looking at the data. And so when you have people who are coming into a controlled environment that are universally following safety protocols, this is actually the safest you could possibly make it versus being remote and going out and about throughout your day and going here and there. You know, being in one static place where universal protocols are being followed all day long is actually a much, much safer environment for staff and students. And I think that education around that and conversation around that really needs to happen, because I do think that there's a lack of understanding with some of this, and which allows sort of that fear and that concern of the unknown to sort of take hold and prevent us from moving forward the way we need to.
With you guys having, you know I've been following some of it, again, knowing that I'm headed out in a month. I've tried to de-stress myself by not following every conversation in the Falls Church Parents group, but there's a lot happening. So sometimes I just have to go, okay, I gotta shut down. But you know so you mentioned, Courtney, you know, when you were saying how you felt sort of called to be an advocate here, talking about that partnership. And I know it was mentioned last week that there seems to be a feeling of adversarial nature. But I'm curious as to, like, how are you seeing that conversation being facilitated? And Jared or Jen, you guys could both answer, at least for Falls Church, with the school district, because I certainly know that we've been trying to engage and talk. But where is the adversarial coming from, or do you feel that it's adversarial? Do you feel like it's somewhat fake news that it's adversarial, and maybe inside the bubble you're not feeling that much tension? You're actually feeling like you're getting somewhere. Like, how can you help us understand where you guys are at in the process?
I think that's a great question. You know, I think that, again, maybe because of a lot of the rhetoric of the last couple of years, I think that there's this feeling when someone starts pushing for something that it's anti something else. And I think we actually talked about this a little bit earlier. And I think that's dangerous, because I think that, let's talk about relationship health with you, just independent relationships with people, right? Constructive criticism, constructive conflict, open dialogue. These are all things that are critically important to healthy relationships and healthy dynamics. And when you can't, if you don't feel like you can have an open, honest conversation, or if you feel like when someone's coming to you and saying, hey, listen, this is a need, this is a problem, let's talk about it, and that feels like a personal attack, I think that we need to step back from that, right? Because, again, open dialogue and constructive conflict are healthy, needed things. And so, one of the first things that we decided as a group was, first of all, we needed to coalesce a voice. We knew that there were a lot of families independently who had been kind of raising the white flag, saying we need help, we're not being heard, our kids are suffering, we're in real crisis, we've walked away from jobs, we've left the town, our kids are requiring mental health intervention, and they felt left out of the conversation. And so for us, it was, how do we kind of gather all of these families together so that we can have an organized voice that's kind of all working towards the same thing? So that for us was step one. Step two, I think, and concurrent to that, was, where are the experts in our community that can help guide us so that we're saying and doing the right things? And that is the other thing that we were doing concurrently with trying to coalesce and say, hey, look, we're organizing, we're going to try and be constructive and collaborative here. Come here with us. And then let's find these experts like Jared, like one of our pediatric physicians in our town, like a research data scientist, like a diagnostic professional who have experience and can speak to some of the various issues around this, so that we can say, look, we've got a team that knows what they're talking about, that wants to help, like engage us. So that's the other thing that we were doing. And then three, I think, accountability is important when it comes to a job, again, when it comes to relationship. And so how do you make public institutions accountable, and how do you push that button? Well, through advocacy, through public shows of advocacy with signs and mailers, and being open and starting that conversation. And so that's what we're doing now. Behind the scenes, have we been reaching out to teachers individually and asking, what are your concerns, what are your thoughts, like how can we help, where are the gaps? We've been doing that, and we've certainly been utilizing relationships with school board and people who maybe know our superintendent, because our whole goal is, again, we have to stop being siloed. We have to stop being disconnected. We have to be collaborative. We have to sit down, and Falls Church City is particularly lucky in that we are a really small community, and it should be easy for us to kind of like take a deep breath, realize it's not personal, that this is constructive, and how can we work together? Yeah. And so we've started doing that both publicly and privately. And I think that conversations like this, so that people can understand tone and see the connection and just have that personalization that has truly been missing with the pandemic in general, which I think has exacerbated a lot of the cognitive dissonance with this, right? Yeah. Because we're all by ourselves, and we're little islands of people. And how do you connect with others in a meaningful way when you're on an island? So these types of conversations are important. The conversations that we have on Facebook are important. Having it open and not attacking someone, and hearing what they need, making them feel heard and supported, while also, making yourself feel heard. These things are critical. And so we're trying to do all of those things while still putting solutions on the table. So that's sort of what we've been doing.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I do think people just have to have open conversations about this, and be willing to challenge and be challenged, for sure. It's a tough issue. I wonder, in our area, maybe you guys know more than I do, if crowding of classrooms that has been happening for years, maybe not in Falls Church, I'm not sure, but other places, is problematic. At Columbia, we had a lot of space to work with, and we had to have it. We had to spread kids way out and hire additional faculty to make it work. It's not been easy, and we've shut down classrooms several times. And to be honest with you, when those classrooms have had to be shut down because of people getting sick, it wasn't teachers, it was parents that we had to worry about, the other parents. It's just such a complex issue. I wish there were way more conversation happening on. I wonder how you facilitate that. And I do think that, Courtney, you're right. Right now, it's just so hard for people to get together and talk about these things. And so once you talk about them, people already are kind of loaded for bear in some ways. And and making assumptions. So how does that partnership happen? I think the more you guys can do to make that happen, the better off we'll be. But
I can give an example
our
of
kids
something
are
we've
suffering for sure.
Yeah,
go
I'm something we've tried to do as a parent group. I said this before we all were on the call, but we've been accused of being anti-teacher of our group, and it's sad to me because we are very purposeful in not being anti-teacher. We are called, that we want to be teacher killers and all kinds of other horrible names. Mommy wants to go to yoga class. We've heard it all throughout this, but we have tried to be way above that. We're spending all of our time advocating to get our kids back with teachers. So we love teachers. I think if we learn anything in the spring, as far as parents, wow, teachers, you're amazing. You are heroes. Like, we all were so excited to get our kids back with you. So, I hope from that perspective that teachers are not, certainly are there bad apples on both sides. Sure. In Twitter and social media and all of that is everyone's screaming into their echo chambers and using pseudonyms, and it's a toxic, negative place. But in real life, having these conversations are important. But some of the things we've tried to do as a parent group, we've done PPE campaigns. We've posted on all the teacher Facebook groups. We posted on our website. Hey, if you're back when we had dates in the fall that ended up not going, and then again, hey, if there's something you're not getting from Arlington, is it a face shield? Is it Clorox wipes? Is it what would make you feel more comfortable? Let us know and we will get it. We'll fundraise. We will go and buy it. We have local businesses that are going to be drop-off sites, so people can drop off extra things, whatever the teachers ask for. We're ready to do it. We've tried to do that. We've had teachers reach out privately because a lot of them fear, in a sad and horrible way, they fear retribution from their colleagues on coming out publicly wanting in-person school. We have quite a few in our group, but they won't tell anybody that they're a teacher. So I have a lot of people reaching out to me specifically saying, hey, I need help, or here's the thing. And so we've advocated on behalf of them for example, Arlington wasn't going to pay quarantine leave. If you got exposed in your classroom and you had to go home, they weren't going to pay quarantine leave. That's ridiculous. So, things like that. We've tried to be an advocate, not just for kids, but also for these teachers. I personally wish the teachers that want to go back were more loud. We're advocating more publicly for their students. When we call into school board meetings, all of ours have been virtual throughout the pandemic, and they also limit the number of speakers, which again kind of limits the dialogue. It's 100% been teachers who don't want to go back. Mm-hmm. It's been the union, the brand new association doesn't want to go back. So we're not hearing the voices. So from parent perspectives and from the kids' perspectives, it can feel like there are not any teachers who want to go back. I know there are, but they're not comfortable being public about it right now. So it's kind of, how do we get them to a place where they feel? And I wish I had your optimism on where we're going to be in a month. The CDC guidelines that just came out are actually really bad. 99% of the country is in the red zone of those guidelines, which is no middle school and no high school. It's 6 feet distancing and masking, even at zero COVID. 0 to 9 cases total in a week per 100,000. I don't know if we're ever going to get there.
I think you'll be back hybrid in a month. I think next fall.
I hope you're right.
I think next fall you'll be back. This is history, plain and simple. This is not the first pandemic, as you guys pointed out. There's a way historically that cultures have responded to pandemics. We're right on course. And, there's a possibility, of course, that we have high immunity in the fall. We have the combination of vaccinations and people who've had it, which is a lot of people.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that now potentially.
And then there's also the possibility that variants overcome some of that. Either way, I'm telling you, the culture is going to move on. I was talking to Jen about this earlier this year, and she was saying this needs to happen, and I'm just like, it's not going to happen. This was not my personal opinion. It's what I know about culture and where we are in this moment. I think we will move on, and it'll be another phase, and it's been an interesting moment. I don't want to ever go through it again. You don't either. It's been, for pastors and administrators and teachers and parents, I don't think it's been fun for anybody, and nobody can quite seem to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I do think we'll move beyond it.
I do think that you're right. I think all of us in a sane moment can say we'll move beyond it. What I don't want to diminish is that whether we are optimistic about it happening in the fall or not, there are no unreasonable demands for plans to be presented. There's no unreasonable
Sure.
requests for, it is a public service that everyone does pay for. And with any job, my boss expects me to report on how I'm doing. I mean, it's a legitimate concern and a legitimate request of our school systems to stop hiding behind when it's safe. When it's safe is not a plan. It's just a word, and we don't really know what it means, and we haven't been given good guidelines around it. So I do think that there is a reason there is frustration, and it's not simply because, there might be individual frustration thinking that if I'm pro, then that must be I'm anti. And yep, that's a problem. And I think people need to work on that. But I do think that it's important that we don't diminish the importance of these types of conversations, not just to have them as dialogue, but to demand action.
No doubt. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot to be learned from this moment. So, as a father of a teacher, let me tell you, she can barely afford to live in this area. I mean, barely. And by that, I mean, you have no idea.
It's an appropriate time to have that.
It's an appropriate time for us to recognize that some of what's resulting here, we've been building for years, which is undervaluing things that really are quite a bit more important to us than we thought they were. And so when we move beyond this, we will forget all these lessons very quickly because it's history. But I hope we don't. I hope that these kinds of discussions, these kind of coalitions that are being built remain together to advocate for the best that we can do. And I hope we haven't destroyed, in all of this, destroyed institutions even more, that I think we appreciate a lot more. It's not you guys. I'm not saying you're destroying them. I'm saying that culturally, we're kind of moving into corners, and it's a little frightening to me for the future of the country, and not just this issue, a lot of them. Yeah. This is sort of a touch point. It's an interesting moment that we can learn from.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we do. I don't know.
Hopefully will teach us all about holding things in tension as well.
Yeah,
and holding them appropriately. So, because I do hear you. My twin brother's a school teacher. Frankly, he made a lot more money than what my husband was doing in a regular job. So, I get it. But is this the time to be having that? Like, we can hold those two things in tension and not say we're going to withhold this because we're pissed off that years in advance we haven't been doing right by like, that can't be that. The children are suffering. That, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit heated about that, but that feels like that can't be the argument. Just like we shouldn't see that they get their pay reduced or held back. Like, we shouldn't be conflating these issues. There's other ways to find budget to accommodate the PPE. We don't need to be threatening raises and things like that either. So I say both sides of this argument needs to probably quell down and focus on kids, get our kids in school. It's the right thing to do for us. So sorry, Courtney, I was cutting you off.
Oh, no. I think what I was just going to say is I think that's where, again, planning and conversation and collaboration really comes in, because I do think that the teachers have felt also very jerked around and not quite sure and not clear about what their expectations are, or they've been asked to be focused over here, and then on the drop of a dime, they're coming over here, and that's difficult. No one likes to be told what to do, right? No one likes that feeling. And so again, when you have plans with clear benchmarks and contingencies and metrics that you're looking at and saying, okay, we're going to look at X, Y, and Z, and we're doing A, B, and C, and we're going to evaluate these things on a bi-weekly basis. And if we're in this, if we're at this point by X time, then we're looking at this next, like that type of clarity is something that I think everybody needs, because people need a sense of security in a very insecure time.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the big misses here with administrations has been an inability to articulate that in a way that resonates with both the teachers and the parents. There very well may be plans going on behind the scenes, but if you don't have a staff that understands is on board, and you don't have parents that are clear either, that leaves you by yourself. Again, that brings you back to that silo of, okay, you might be spinning your wheels and doing all the right things, but if no one knows it and people can't support it and they're not on board and they're not clear, then you're not getting anywhere. And so again, I think that takes us back to the real need for not only these conversations to be happening between teachers associations and the administration, but for parents who are not affiliated with either of those two institutions, outside of that, to be at the table, clearly communicating and having these open conversations. And again, I think changing the dynamic where people are afraid to speak up. if teachers should not be afraid to say that they want to go back to school. Teachers should not be afraid to say, I'm super uncomfortable with that. Parents shouldn't be afraid to say either of those things. We can have that conversation and include all of those voices and still move forward together. That is a very doable thing. You just need strong leadership and collaboration and a willingness to, again, I think, put the children first and understand here's our goal and we know why we need to meet it. And we know there's some urgency around this because there's real harm that is ongoing the longer we push this out, and they can't advocate for themselves. So it's incumbent upon us as adults to put aside all the rest of the stuff and figure this out together.
And frankly, when you're a parent, you'll do anything for your kids.
Amen. Move mountains.
I'm with you. Yeah, I understand. So that's actually a good closing statement. We're 11 minutes over time, which was worth it tonight, because that's a good discussion. And I appreciate what you guys are doing, because I do think these kind of community discussions just have to come to the front. And people have to be talking openly about these things and going back and forth on these things. And some of you are Columbians I deeply respect. And the two of you who are here, Jared and Courtney, thanks for being our guests. Good to have you. We'll have you back.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
I hope next time we have you, we'll be at a really different place, don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Am I ready for this moment to be passed? But anyway, you guys have a great week, and all of you out there. And Erin, glad you're back. You look good. Glad you're here.
Thank
and
you.
We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.